Hey guys, welcome to the Kinggath podcast, and my guest today is known for some really cool mods, especially some settlement mods and some questing mods. I know him as the guy who created the All Settlements Extended series, which fulfilled a need a lot of you guys kept asking for me from some settlements. So please welcome Neeher. Did I say that right?
Hello. Yes, Neeher, N-E-E-H-E-R. It's like Neeher. I've heard all kinds of different crazy pronunciations, but it's always just, it's a lot simpler than it seems.
Yeah, it's not the hardest one I've had to pronounce. I definitely butchered one yesterday. Somebody put out a new add-on pack, and I was recording a video for it. And I'm like, I have no idea how to say this, so I just wing it and hope for the best. And then I always just apologize right afterward because I know I'm going to butcher it and I feel bad about it. But I really just need to start.
It's just like a string of numbers that don't make any sense.
Right? Yeah, that can happen a lot in these. But for people who have, I don't know if it's like foreign names or they're just, there's like more vowels than I expect, and I just kind of stumble over it. So I really should just reach out to these people and like, can you tell me how to say this if I'm a moron? And then see what they say.
Kind of reminds me of Juicehead.
He butchered something real bad in a video the other day that was pretty funny, but I get it. I feel your pain, Juicehead. So I first found out about your stuff from All Settlements Extended, but I had actually played Xander's Aid before that and just didn't recognize that you had done both. Yeah, what was your first mod? What did you get started with?
Like first mod ever, or
first mod of Fallout, and then we'll talk about other stuff.
Well, first Fallout mod that I ever put on the Nexus was for Fallout 4. I'd say a couple of months after the game came out. It was just a simple, Piper face change mod. I didn't even really like it. That was the first mod ever. I think my really forever first mod was just a combat armor retexture called Riley's Rangers Combat Armor. And then I did one for power armor after that.
So you do a little bit of everything then. You do facial stuff, you do textures, you do quest mods.
That first mod, I think that was created with Face Ripper when that was like just came out, and I was like, oh, I want to do this, turn it into take the face of something else, put it on with Face Ripper, and then export that into an ESP because it's a pretty versatile program.
Yeah, Face Ripper is awesome. We just actually put out a call to players of Sim Settlements because we need a bunch of NPCs for something we're working on, and I just put out a call to like, just send me all your save files. We'll just use Face Ripper and we can make a bunch of NPCs out of them. Yeah, so that'll be fun. But that program is sweet, and I'm surprised it still works through all the changes that Fallout's been through. Because I contacted whoever created it, I can't remember right now, but they said I haven't updated in a long time. It's kind of use at your own risk at this point. And I was like, all right, well, it's still working. So
yeah, I mean, I make a mod, and then I'm typically like right at the end when I'm done with everything. That's when I make the faces in Fallout 4, and then inject them into an ESP.
How does Bethesda must do something like that? There's no way that they actually do the modeling in the creation kit.
Is awful.
It's so bad. And I mean, the kit in general has a lot of issues, but their facial manipulation is especially bad.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how they must do it.
Updating, and then like you do the tiniest change and then it has to update, which takes a couple seconds, and then it's like
yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to get there. Unless maybe they don't ever actually use it except for little tweaks, and they have some way to do it in 3D Studio Max or something. And maybe we just maybe that's in there as kind of a joke to toy with us. I can't imagine what else it's for. It's so bad.
Oh yes, the 3DS 2013, 3DS Max 2013.
Yeah, that's so for everybody listening to us, know we have to, if we want to do 3D modeling for Fallout 4, we have to find an old version of 3ds Max that's not even, they won't even sell it to us. Like you could go to Autodesk and offer them, however, what do their licenses cost? Like $1,500? It's something pretty expensive, and they just tell you no. They'd be like, no, you have to buy the newer version. It's like, but I'm happy with your old version.
But I have this plugin that only works for 2013. Too bad.
I wonder if somebody would have reverse engineered and created one for 20. Whatever the current version is, if Bethesda hadn't given that to us, or if we would just be left high and dry at this point.
I'm not sure.
That whole like necessity is the mother
I feel
invention
like
thing.
The NIF Scope team or something related to that would have come up with something.
I would hope so. 'Cause I know Blender has
pretty
something.
Important to have, yeah.
It is very important to have, and especially because we finally have access to do things like animations and stuff. So there's even more use for models than ever as far as Bethesda modding goes. So how long how long were you modding Fallout 4 before you started getting into the deeper stuff like the quest mods and whatnot?
Let's see here. So this was 2015 with that one mod. I was installing mods. I wasn't really making mods. I had played with the GEC for Fallout 3 many years ago, and then probably like 7 years of just no modding at all went down. And then Fallout 4 came out and got me way more interested in modding again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to say... I just don't really remember, but I think I just started with the basics, simple retexture mod, and then learned every little bit because it is quite different from Fallout 3.
Were you releasing mods for Fallout 3?
I can't remember anything about Fallout 3 in terms of modding it.
Yeah. It was much more difficult than it is to mod Fallout 4.
Big time. Now it's like, I find it really easy and fun to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas 3 was just kind of a struggle, and then it left me more. What's the word? I guess. I can't think of the word, but I guess getting more aggravated. I guess from Fallout 3's GEC.
Yeah.
So I didn't really spend too much time on it because I just don't like being aggravated or irritated. That's the word. And then Fallout 4 is just a breeze. I don't have any problems modding Fallout 4. CK doesn't crash for me, luckily.
Yeah, it used to crash for me all the time, but I don't know if maybe it was one of the updates, because they were pushing out updates pretty regularly in the middle, like after they started releasing DLC, and then up till they finished, they kept putting out patches, and it seems to have pretty well stabilized. I mean, I can still make it crash occasionally, but it's not nearly as bad as it was.
I know how to intentionally make it crash. I know what to avoid, what not to do, and when to save, because I know what I'm about to do is about to crash it.
Gotta risk it anyway.
Going into like the quest form, opening up that window and hitting the objectives tab, there's like a 50% chance it's going to crash.
Really?
Just click that tab. It's the worst.
For me and most people who work on the Sim Settlement stuff, our biggest fear is when we go to create the static collections. Like that's a nice easy trigger of creating crashes. Yeah. That's something we do a lot of. But if you accidentally...
do a whole lot of skull, but...
It ends up being a nice, easy way to generate NIFs out of multiple meshes. And recently we've discovered we can actually spawn those dynamically in the code. So we're actually going to be able to use that to drop a lot of file space usage out. Because what we've been doing is generating NIFs out of the skulls. And then just packaging those, and it works great, but they get pretty huge, and so it bulks up the file size pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
So we're up to, with all of the pack, all the stuff from Sim Settlements. If you're using all of the stuff just in the core mod, it's like 900 megabytes right now, which is on Xbox. That's a big problem. So we've been constantly looking for ways to trim that down. So did you release things on Fallout 3, or were you just kind of a hobbyist with it?
No, I never released anything from Fallout 3. I made like a little house mod for the Megaton, already that interior that then branches into another interior. And then typical weapon toying around with, like minigun that shoots, mini nukes.
Oh yeah, of course. Those were the best.
I never put out anything for Fallout 3.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I touched it a bit.
Was the first thing ever.
I didn't really get into... I never actually released anything for Bethesda mods or Bethesda games before Fallout 4. And just for some reason, Fallout 4 really did it for me, which is funny because there's a lot of purists who are like, oh, Fallout 4 is garbage. And the number of people who purchased it... And I had this conversation with Gopher recently about the fact that the number of people who purchase a game isn't an indicator of how good the game is necessarily. It's a good indicator of how good the previous game was, which I think is pretty fair. But I would say the number of mods that have been created for Fallout 4 is pretty telling for how entertaining the game is, because you have to be really into a game to commit the time to create mods for it.
Yeah, and it's still like people are pumping out mods pretty regularly for Fallout 4.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And, typically there's like 20 to 30 a day, I think.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
On the front page.
Yeah, we have constantly revolving front page mods. It's it's still a very healthy community, and I mean, part of it, I think the number of mods for it is probably because of what we were saying earlier about how much easier it is now to make mods versus some of the older games. But even beyond that, I think there are just a shocking number of mods available. Like it's rare you can't find a mod to do, to make that little tweak you want. Because I think we're now in the phase of the life of Fallout 4 where it's mostly people are looking for big sweeping, like we're waiting eagerly for like the Miamis and the Cascadias and things like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, didn't you get involved in one of those recently? Like a bigger mod?
Been like dipping my toes into several of them. Even Miami in the beginning, I was helping the lead deal with LOD problems. And then the Fallout 3 Capital Wasteland project, or Fallout 4 Capital Wasteland, they had some map problem LOD thing kind of related, and I helped them with that. And then Liberty Hell is another project that also had an LOD problem. People they come flocking in from Xander's Aid, like, you created this world space with LOD, how'd you do it? Stuff like that. So that's pretty much where all the attention came from, people asking for help on their large project.
Yeah, Xander's Aid was one of the very first, if not the first, Quest mod. Like, I know DD Productions put out one like before the Creation Kit even came out, but it was it was pretty silly, and but I don't think there was anything. I think Xander's Aid was the first like serious Quest mod, if I'm not mistaken,
I did
for
put
Fallout
out
4.
one. So Xander's Aid, that was a Firelance quest, but I also came out before that with a sort of dungeon quest for the Firelance, and that I made in Xedit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Well, it was mainly just like taking an interior that nobody ever used, or went into a parking garage in the Glowing Sea and kind of just putting some aliens in there, a specific alien with the Firelance. And it was extremely simple, but I feel like that was my first quest mod ever, even though there was no quest or quest form in it.
It's the DD production stuff always impressed the hell out of me, because he was willing to go through the trouble of doing that kind of thing in Xedit, because it's like,
so much work.
It is so much work, and then just collecting all of the data to punch in there, and it's what a mess.
I remember definitely hopping in game. How did it look? Oh, that's off just a little bit. Let me edit the ESP, move something over to the left, or like -5 on the x-axis.
Yeah, definitely not my bag. I prefer to wait for the official tools. It's just so much easier, and then there's less guesswork then, because that's the thing is, like, a lot of the people who jump in head first, early and do the Xedit mods, like, kudos to them, because they figure out a lot of stuff for us as the front runners. But man, the amount of time that they'll take to figure out some of the simpler stuff is just like, I can't do it. I can't put like the amount of I love solving problems, and I'll put a lot of hours in. But when I know that if I'm just patient and wait for the official tools, because the other thing that is really cool about Bethesda is they'll actually support the tools for a few months after they come out. I remember all the time that like SMK Viper and a couple of the other people who work at Bethesda on their forums would be there all the time answering questions, and it was like, this is awesome. Like, you don't get this from any other game company anymore. Like, as far as getting help with their editors. It's just generally kind of like, here's the tools, good luck.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there is some difference between the Skyrim and Fallout 4 Creation Kit. I never modded anything Skyrim. I've never even really played Skyrim, but it's not my kind of game.
You got to have the gunplay.
Hardcore Fallout all the way. Skyrim. it is a widely popular game. Everyone loves that game.
Right.
But
except
I never
Neeher.
really got into it. I'm not a magic and swords kind of person. I'm more about guns and things like that.
Fair.
But
so aside from Fallout, what are some other franchises that grab you?
The Tomb Raider, 2013 to Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I love those. Those are good. I'm trying to think. Don't play a whole lot of other games.
I feel you on that. I feel like the amount of Fallout I play now is insane.
Most of the time is just modding Fallout or currently playing 76 a little bit.
I heard I watched one of your videos where you ran into some pretty nasty bugs.
It's just a headache. And this patch that I don't know when this is coming out, but the patch was that came out today was just they fixed a ton of things, but they didn't get the main game breaking stuff fixed, like that that bug in particular, the damage bug.
Yeah. They're making healthier progress than I expected when I read through those patch notes. Like they're clearly going at this aggressively because when you figure like to make that many fixes, like generally when you're working at that scale, and in order to feel comfortable about releasing fixes, you generally have to get them cycled through QA. So for them to get that many fixes through QA in a week is really impressive.
They went from that first patch like last week, which was just a handful of things, to this extremely huge list of bug fixes, and it was pretty impressive. But
yeah, I don't know if maybe that's a sign of them transitioning control over to whoever the final team is, or maybe they got the original development team back in, but something changed there for that much stuff to be released. Or it could have also just been we're just seeing like a series of iterations that are all coming together at once. Like maybe a lot of those fixes have been in the works for weeks, and they just all happened to come out this week. But I actually played this morning for a bit. And I will say that to me the best change they've made to date in 76 is the change to make it so that you can always connect to a server where your camp is there. I think and it seems like a small thing, but just giving you that feeling of some permanence of that, what you built is there all the time and matters. That is so important just to the overall feel of the game, because the game is, as it was destroyed by many magazines, one of the common things that everybody who has complained about it has been that it just feels kind of ethereal. Like you have your character's not permanent, the world's not permanent, your camp isn't permanent. So like that move just gives you something to feel permanent, and I think that's a really subtle but important change they made. And mad kudos to them. And I actually felt immediately that after the patch, I was like, I want to build my camp now. Like now knowing that I can just stake out a part of this world and my stuff will always be there. Like that's such a big deal. Like I know all those features they did, like the blueprinting, really cool and whatnot. But I think this is the real way to go. Like the blueprinting is fun and all, but having a permanent camp really makes it worth investing some time in, I think.
Yeah, it is really important. The camp is your home because, the public workshops are just so temporary and you have to get used to that. But the camp is what is really your home for the whole game. And if it just disappears when you try to load in, and then you probably appear nearby, and then your house is taken over by someone else, or someone else's entire building. Right. You're probably pretty upset. I was lucky and I never really had this problem. No one's ever taken up the same spot as I have. I even had I built a house during the beta, and then for probably up until last week I moved it. And I never
that's a good run.
Had to rebuild it. Luckily,
I am going through the games. Okay, so you're out of the. I feel like most people have been building up on cliffs. At least the videos I've seen, because everybody likes to brag about their views. Because there are some really cool views you can get in this game with how far the draw distance is compared to. It's always funny. I always feel the need to have like add a little caveat at the end whenever I give Bethesda props for their engine, because it looks beautiful, and I always feel the need to say for a Bethesda game, because when you look at like all the games that are just coming out, like the new Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty Black Ops 4, it's like Right, they're so insane looking, and then you look at Fallout 70, and if you compare 76 to them, it's like, ugh. But if you compare it to Fallout 3, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's such a big change. I kind of feel like Fallout 4 looked better in some aspects.
Yeah, I agree too. I do appreciate the long draw distance, but I agree. I think in general, and part of that is, we've got all these mods for it, but even without the mods on Fallout 4, it does seem like the model and texture quality has been degraded in some cases, which is a strange decision.
It's really weird. On my laptop, I have to play the game on medium, and
really?
The trees look like thick watercolors, like paintings. It's so bad looking. And then, I have my PC, which can run the game on Ultra, of course, and it looks a lot better. But I look at Fallout 4, and like these trees, they don't look so 2D, In 76, there's just several planes of 2D textures that, I don't know. It's really weird since they reused a lot of the same assets, but somehow they're not the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I wonder how much of the improvements to the engine were really more like side grades where they sacrificed one thing to pull off something else.
That's what I think they do with the lighting. Some of the lighting could look really nice, but the shadow distance, it's so abrupt. In Fallout 4, the shadow, there's also a shadow distance, but it fades out nice and smoothly, so you don't really notice it.
Sure.
Because I went into Fallout 4 yesterday because I was really curious. I'm like, is that there? There's no like sudden, area where there's no shadows. There is, but it's just faded out really nicely, and you don't really notice it.
Sure. Yeah, and I wonder how much of that stuff is, those were kind of intentional sacrifices they had to make just to pull off the game at the scope they did within the same engine, or if those are things that they could eventually fix. Because it seemed to me like those are probably core level things. Like we're just going to have to live with those forever.
Yeah, I think it's more of their new lighting mechanic they have. Have you seen the texture files for this game, 76?
I have not. I haven't opened them up yet. Except for I opened up the map, and I opened up like that map you released because I was curious about how those were set up. Because I agree with you 100% on the map. That map is cool looking that they made, but I almost would like that to be. Do you remember like old RTS games where you had like the fog of war that would slowly reveal the map? Like I kind of want that.
Yes.
Like whereas like as you discover the map, it reveals that Bethesda map. That would be a cool feature. But as here's your vanilla map, it feels really cheaty.
Coder comes to mind for that. You walk through an area and you can see sort of the objectives on this blank map, but as you walk through, it opens up where you've been.
Yeah. That could have been a cool way to do that. Maybe could be a cool mod, although it's really hard to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I've had the idea before because I play Coder every once in a while. That's Knights of the Old Republic, and I just think I just have no idea how to do something like that, if it's even possible in this engine.
I mean, it's probably possible, but it's going to require some crazy Flash hackery, which. I don't know about you, but every time I open up Flash, I cry a little inside. I'm like, oh, why do I have to work with this?
Oh, I'm just glad I haven't.
I remember learning it a long time ago, and then pulling it back. Like once Reg put out Framework, I'm like, all right, I can do this. I used to do Flash, and I pull it open. I'm like, nope, I don't remember any of this because it was so quickly obsoleted. Like with how fast people got out of Flash. Like unless you were really, we need to get some of those Flash game developers. Do you remember? God, what's the name of that site? I can't think of it all. It has a tank for a logo, but it was this Newgrounds, yeah, where they had just like thousands of games and videos, and they were all in Flash. What happened to all those guys? We need to get some of those guys coming over to Fallout, and they could probably make some really cool HUD mods for us.
There's just plenty of people that still make Flash animations and put them on Newgrounds, of course.
I didn't even. I completely forgot about Newgrounds.
Disappeared or moved on to, industry quality of work.
Right.
They actually work in the industry instead of just making silly animations. Yeah. And
Well, so
YouTube.
Some of those games were actually pretty solid too. Like, so I could see why a lot of those people probably ended up working in, actual jobs instead of just giving all their stuff away.
Yeah, I think that one site, Addicting Games, that was another huge Flash Flash game site.
Yeah,
it had Interactive Buddy and just Bowman. I think that was Bowman 2.
That sounds familiar. I just figured there's got to be there are a lot of people out there who happen to know Flash. We just don't have enough of them in the Fallout community. I joke that the only person who can actually do anything in it is not Neeher, Nyanka. Nyanka is the only one who can do anything real in Flash. Reg does a lot of stuff, but Nyanka, I think, and him tend to work together on that stuff. And thank God that they put together mods like Def UI for these games.
And then
I don't know. It's I don't know how we're gonna
HUD mod, right?
Oh yeah, he's got immersive HUD, which I think he redid
right.
for. I think he redid that for HUD Framework too, which is good because HUD Framework, those are that stuff like that is amazing when people put together those kind of frameworks so that everybody can work together on it. Like I did my, I tried to contribute my version.
Workshop framework.
No, I wasn't even going to bring that up in the sense that I was going to say I put my SAD version together because it feels so underwhelming compared to something like HUD Framework when I look at the source code to it. Is that some of the old pros who have been modding these games for a long time and really understand that stuff? It's so impressive, and it's so needed to really get the modding going in the community. Like something like HUD Framework is just amazing, so that we're not stuck with having to constantly put out patches and stuff for each other's mods.
Oh yeah,
because it's such a hindrance for development when people have to constantly put out patches, which again is something credit to Bethesda for making Fallout 4 easier to mod in that way. Like I've never had a game where I'm able to avoid editing vanilla records as easily as I am in Fallout 4. Like I definitely have to jump through some hoops sometimes, but I'm shocked at how much I can edit without having to dirty edit the game files, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Even in 76, you can just straight up change stuff in the archives, and they seem to be fine with that. I don't really know why. But,
I can't believe they didn't put a checksum on it. Just as soon as you log in, it checks your files and sees. I mean, I'm sure somebody would have come up with a hot loader to get around that, but still, the fact that they didn't even bother is very odd.
Yeah, even there are plenty of mods where you can, edit your INI to load archives. I don't really like to add files to my 76 directory. Instead, I just inject them into the archives. The downside is that every time there's an update, the game notices that there's something changed and re-downloads the entire archives.
Whoops.
So today, I have like a 10 gig download instead of the 3.
I've been putting in the new files, and I'm okay if I get banned. I don't care. I don't
really gonna ban anyone.
I don't think so either. I think maybe if the game was doing really well and they had a problem with cheaters, but I think given the sourness that the game came out on, I think they're gonna want to avoid the ire of any of their fans. And I think anybody who's using mods right now is not doing it. There are some exploits you can pull off. Like you could definitely do some stuff like changing, like making it easier to find other players and stuff. But there's not much of a PvP environment in the game.
There's no reason to actually do that.
Right. And then because you max out your stash so quickly and your build limit, there's really like cheating has no point. Like you're already at, it's too easy to get to max. I guess if there were a way where you could cheat yourself, do they go up to 5-star or is it 4-star legendaries?
5 stars. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if there were a way to cheat yourself in the 5-star legendaries, then maybe there'd be a problem. But so far, it just seems like you can get yourself a little advantage in like the lock picking mod and the glow mods and things like that. But there's not. I don't think there's much you can do otherwise. I actually already tried to look into creating papyrus scripts, and the game does not seem to like that. So I at least thought that through.
It seems everything is handled on the server side. That's what I've noticed from my various mod testing ideas.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably how it should be. I can't imagine it would go too well if you just trusted client information. So are you interested in the private server side when that comes out? Is that something you're going to be pursuing?
I know C. Dante will be getting a private server, and I'll play on that. But as far as getting my own, probably not. I'm sure he'll let me make mods, whatever is possible.
Stick them on there.
And
sure.
Play them out on his. But I don't really see myself getting my own server unless I really get into it and then want to really test constantly. But
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat of like, I love the idea of having and actually in my head, like when the game first came out, I was kind of on the no NPCs, like that's not going to work. But then I kind of reserved judgment. Game came out, and I found that by the time I finished the beta, I was already like pretty much done with it. I was like, all right, I got my fill. And I was like, well, that's not normal. Usually Bethesda games, I'm several hundred hours in my first playthrough, and then I immediately want to do another one. So I'm like, well, that's a different feeling. That's very disappointing. But at the same time, during that cycle, like during the early parts of the beta and everything, I was still thinking about how fun it could be to build multiplayer mods again, because I used to do that for Half-Life and a couple other games back in the day. And so doing that for a Bethesda game was really exciting. But now I feel like what you just said of if I'm into the game at that time still, like, because a year is a long time, and if I'm already getting bored in the first month, I don't know how they're going to keep my attention for a year.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. I've probably I'd say probably around 100 hours and 76 on PC. Mm-hmm. And I hopped in yesterday. I messed around a little bit, found these random people. We joined a group and messed around, and then we logged off. And then I was like, I don't really know what to do. I guess I'm done for the day. And then I played earlier for probably around 10 minutes before I was like, I don't know what to do. I haven't even done all the quests. I have like a huge backlog of quests, and I'm like, none of these interest me.
Right. So I'm going to find more dead people. That's not exciting. We'll see what happens. I'm still gonna pay attention to the game, just because it's got the Fallout name on it. I'm a sucker for that brand, and I'm really curious what they'll do to try and to rescue things and whatnot. So I'm not completely giving up hope, and I'm exploring. I'm actually super slow at the game, so because I have kind of lost interest in grinding through it. I think I'm level like 13 right now. Like that's how slow I'm going through the game.
I'm like 113.
I think I'm on my like fourth character though. I kept spinning up new characters because I was just trying to figure out. Still trying to figure out the early game of like, how should I invest my points and everything, because I knew they didn't have a respec option, and now they've added that in this patch. Mm-hmm. But at the time I was like, I want to get this character right, and so then I figured out what I wanted to do, and so I think I have like 3 level 10 or 12 characters. So that's still it's a fraction of what you've got, because I'm sure 3 level 10 level 12 characters even probably only takes 15 hours to do. So I don't have that much time much time in it at all. But yeah, it's a shame that things going out that way. It really has a feel to me like that deadline was chosen arbitrarily. I don't know if it was for hitting the holiday season or if it was a budget thing, because I have a feeling that ever since Morrowind, Bethesda is very budget conscious. Like they're like, we cannot risk going into bankruptcy again, because it's right before Morrowind. That was, they almost lost their company. Really? So I think, I think that there's a thing in their psyches of like, they're very financially motivated in that regard. Like they can't, they're like, we can't let ourselves get back to that. Is my assumption. I don't know. Obviously, I know nothing personally. I don't work there, but I would assume that that's the case, because I can't see how they would have released the game as it is right now with some of the serious bugs, like the one you found where just damage doesn't work. Like it's
not even that uncommon. I go on Reddit and there's tons of people with this same problem, and it's all on like the same kind of gun too. Any gun with the explosive legendary effect has this problem, guaranteed.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's a really cool effect.
Oh yeah, like in pretty much one shot almost anything. Scorch Beast probably 5 shots up close, of course, wow. But it's just really annoying.
Yeah. You finally get like the super weapon and it's broken. That's a bummer.
You get the super weapon, then you have to gamble using it. You get stuck in a bad situation. Uh-oh. I guess I'm done playing for the day.
I wonder if that is if it's like an anti-cheat mechanism or something. Like they have some sort of thing, like if too too much damage is done at once, then it triggers some sort of anti-cheat mechanism. Just like maybe they didn't think it through about how deadly their explosive weapons are in Fallout 4. You get the explosive weapon, and it's like, all right, that's the last gun I need. I'm good.
Yeah, pretty much. And in the shotgun, you look at the in Fallout 4, the shotgun, each pellet is its own projectile. The combat shotgun shoots like 6 projectiles, and then each one of those has an explosive legendary effect, and then it just multiplies from there. Gun's probably doing 1,000 damage. You don't really know. And that's kind of a red flag in a sense for Bethesda. But
it would be funny if that's what it was. It was just turning so they have a thing that I've seen in their UI, and it would be funny if they had the same problem elsewhere, where their game isn't prepared to deal with excessive numbers, to where like if things go negative, they go back to 999. It'd be funny if they had something the opposite, like if you do so much damage over their health, it goes back into negative numbers and heals them instead. It would be a really dumb bug, but who knows? And especially when you get into anti-cheat stuff
for Bethesda.
So did you see the trailer for Otherworlds, and does it excite you?
Otherworlds looked pretty good. Obsidian is, really good with the storytelling. I'm concerned this isn't an open world game. It's kind of lame because I love open world games. Even Tomb Raider's kind of open world.
Yeah, I got that. I got the impression from their they were trying to downplay it to be like it's a focused game, and when you're running a tiny studio, they've got a real small studio. I think there's like 30 people there, maybe a little more. Maybe I'm wrong on that number, but it's really small. So doing a full open world game. I mean, how many hundreds of people did Bethesda probably have designing something like 76? So doing a full open world game definitely it's kind of become AAA territory, unless you're willing to work in some sort of other medium. Like I think a lot of the indie titles that get into the open world, they don't try and do realistic looking or like high end looking graphics. They'll they'll go down to 2D or simplified 3D to pull it off. So I don't know how you can have the best of those worlds there. I think we're kind of limited now with the production costs of building open world games, that it's kind of AAA territory now.
Oh yeah,
at least temporarily. I think the solution to that is ultimately going to be AI generated content. I think that could change things up, where you could seed worlds and have a lot of it pre-built. So I think we'll start seeing that over time. They're already getting into that to reduce the costs of 3D modeling. If you look into the costs of assets they pay for these games, it is absurd. Like when the late rates, even on the lower end, to like, let's say like make a model of a car. Like say they want to model like a modern SUV. Between the hours they have to pay their employee to do the textures and the model, and get it into the engine and ready for physics and all that, it ends up costing them like $2,000 to $3,000 to create one model in man hours. And it's like, you multiply that out and you start to understand exactly why there's so much asset reuse in these games, why it's like super important that they try and get multiple titles out of them. Like I think we were all, I think a lot of us who are hardcore into the Bethesda series we're hoping for New Vegas 2, or not necessarily New Vegas 2, but a like a spin-off game for our sequel, and we got one, just not the one we were hoping for. But like that to me is like, that's a great way to reuse assets and like let the players feel okay about it, because it's like, okay, cool, we get a whole new world to explore and a new story, just a year or two after the previous one, so the same assets, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what goes into making new assets. Fallout 76 obviously has all the assets from Fallout 4. They kind of just tossed that all in there with all the DLC merged into this one giant file. And then they also created tons and tons of more models, but maybe people don't really notice that, and they just see the familiar coffee cup on the table, and on this very familiar table in a familiar house.
Right.
There's plenty of new content.
There is. I think one of the things is there's the bigger AAA. So Bethesda to me has always been like, there's still a little, like they're making lots of money and they're very popular, but they're still like they're small in size. Like their team size is much smaller than most of these giant companies, and they still have kind of that. They're kind of the underdog when when you compare them to like EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and I think that those other companies have pushed the bar like so high. Like for example, like the Assassin's Creed series now, where since they go into a new like epoch every time that they can't reuse assets, so then we're just getting like spoiled with every new entry is full new assets across the board. And it's like that's not normal. Like if you look at the production costs of those games, it's like $300 or $400 million just for the game, and then they probably spend close to that again on marketing. So it's like these games are spending just hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're like they're basically turning into like the latest Hollywood thing. Like we've got to make $1 billion on this, or we're screwed.
Yeah, that's kind of like Rockstar with GTA 5. Such a completely different architecture than Red Dead. Like everything's just out the window for Red Dead, and all new stuff, everything completely redone. It's all new content.
And yeah, my God, is it gorgeous.
Whereas with Fallout,
so beautiful.
It's all kind of the same world. Some architecture does change, but since everything kind of stopped at the same time when the bombs fell, everything's kind of the same. There's the same Robco terminals, the same, everything. It's all normal.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see. I've always wondered if they're ever going to take Fallout overseas, like to give us, because that to me could make a really interesting a spin-off game, like in the time cycle we normally got where we got New Vegas. If they did like Fallout London or something, because then you could totally change the style of it, and you'd see a whole lot of difference. The way the world would have evolved in those other places could have been a lot different.
Yeah, I don't really see any problem with them doing that. I've never been to any place that Fallout has taken place before anyway, so it'd be interesting to see their take on like England or something.
Sure. Yeah, I think it could give them an opportunity to try out new designs and stuff if they're feeling like the things are getting stale with, like you said, it tends to be that they're going to follow the similar architecture because they're always trying to keep that 50s retro future look to it. So they're slowly establishing their architecture style. Although I will say that like they did a great job of differentiating Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Like the downtown Boston looks nothing like the Capitol Wasteland. And part of that is because of the lack of the green filter, but it's also just totally different style.
It is vastly different. They actually went to Boston because they're kind of close by anyway. Well, they're close by the Capitol Wasteland as well, but they actually went there, studied, and drew all new architecture for the sort of retro-ish Boston look. It's really nice, but it's kind of really annoying to work with for mods. Everything kind of looks like Boston because I'm not making new meshes.
Oh, so like you're talking about when you're trying to make your world space mods, it's harder to get.
Typically things end up looking kind of like Concord or some parts of Boston, because you got those filler buildings.
Right.
They kind of just plop them down, or you make custom buildings out of these small sections of walls, but it's again kind of going to be the same architecture because you got the walls, the trim, that really is just the same architecture over and over again.
Right. But, it does. It definitely has a very limited palette, but I mean that's probably what you need when you're designing the game. You want your game to feel cohesive. I'm sure they're not thinking about what are the modders going to be stuck with, but I can see it from what you're trying to do when you're building, because you're building another world space mod right now, aren't you?
Yeah. It's actually really fun. It's totally different than anything I've ever done before.
Is it bigger in scope, similar in scope to some of the stuff you've done in the past?
Well, Xander's Aid. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I guess this is the third world space mod I'm putting out, while I've had 2 others in the works. But Xander's Aid was kind of island style, kind of keeping buildings more Concord-like, nice and small, compact, what makes some sort of sense. And then let's see here. Then Kelly Manor Horror had a world space, very, very small. That was just swamp, pretty much. So that was fun to mess with. Because there is, a small swamp in Fallout 4, the lower portion of the map.
Yeah.
So
there were a little bit of assets there.
Got to be kind of creepy. The Op Salvo is kind of Far Harbor-y, and then normal Fallout looking, and then going to incorporate what I'm working in now with this current world space. That's a Kelly story, and that one's a snow kind of Fallout winter looking world space.
Sure.
I got the I'm at a loss for words again. I got the inspiration from Jay Shrapnel C's mod Northern Springs, which is entirely snow.
Oh yeah. No, is there snow available in Fallout 4's assets, or did you have to provide your own textures for that?
There is no snow at all, except for the I guess rain effect shader. There is a sort of snow that I personally think sucks. It's terrible.
Because I always notice there's a lot of random assets from older games that end up getting packaged up. So like in 76, you can find a bunch of Fallout 4 files, and in Fallout 4, there's a bunch of random Skyrim files. So I was just curious if maybe they accidentally packaged snow in.
There is snow in Skyrim, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. You haven't played it. Skyrim is all snow, all snow.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So with this, there's a snow shader that's like, it doesn't have any occlusion to it, whereas rain does. So you have to kind of modify. There's all kinds of settings, but for your weather, but you can have a sort of snowy effect from the rain shader, so that you can have the occlusion, so it doesn't snow through the wall.
Sure.
And that's because it's really annoying to look at. You're just looking at a wall and there's snow flying in your face.
Oh, and I just had that today when I was playing 76, because I hadn't built a house in a long time. I built it on my first character, and then I just kind of ignored the system, aside from throwing down my workbenches. And today I'm like, I'm going to build a house now that I know it's permanent. And I was like, oh, they fixed the occlusion, and like the rain doesn't come in, because in Fallout 4 it's sketchy. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sketchy, but even in this the snow mod, it's still kind of there in some aspects. So you kind of have to do this weird workaround, use certain objects that guaranteed rain doesn't get through. Some things rain can get through. So I kind of
do the tricks where you like hide those? Yeah, I was saying you just put those. Oh, that's great.
But yeah, it's really important to have that. It's immersive, much more immersive.
Right. Yeah, because those little things, like, they don't seem like a big deal at first, but like they're the type of things that will annoy players into hating your stuff. Like those little rough edges build up real fast.
I can already see Al Chestbreach like going through the mod and being like, "Oh, look, rain, look, snow coming through the wall. That's totally normal." Something like that. Welcome to Bethesda, or something like that. I can see him saying that already. But that's funny. It should be pretty decent.
So do you have like a target date for that? Are you making steady progress, or do you prefer to just kind of work until it's done and then just release it all of a sudden?
I work it till it's done, and then, because I'm not always working on it. I do whatever I feel like doing. I'm not forcing myself to finish this, If I want to do questing, I'm doing that. If I want to do world space, I'm doing that. And then there's, interior cells. I hate working on those, but those are kind of necessary. They're so boring. I don't know. They're all kind of the same to me.
You prefer to do the full world space building?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, not nearly as interesting as world space stuff.
I like the interior stuff. I like the interior stuff better. I like the fact that you've got to seal in and make a perfect picture, and kind of hide all of the ugly stuff from the player. Like I enjoy that stuff, and especially when I look in the cells and you see what a mess they are outside of stacked up things to make stuff look like different things. I love it. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, I can get that. I do like looking at the markers, just a huge pile of markers that are used for whatever quest to reference something, and they're all just hiding outside of the interior cell, just sitting out there in the void. Of course, you can't see that in the game, but it's funny to see in the creation kit.
Yeah. It's I just watched NoClip put out a documentary. I don't know if they put it out today or yesterday, but on Half-Life. And at one point they were showing in the Half-Life editor, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, is the fact that you didn't really have, so we have now quests that act as kind of controllers that can handle a lot of stuff, and they can handle like intercommunication between. Right, they can just be controller objects. And with the Half-Life engine originally, you had to like put everything on an entity, and it was essentially like, imagine if you wanted to have anything happen in Fallout, you had to create an object that could run that thing, and then you would have to remember what each object was in charge of, so that you could be sure you knew where your little script was and everything. And it was pretty crazy how hard it was to organize everything compared to what it is now.
Just a clever workaround type of thing.
Yeah, you would always have to think. Well, you would have to think of clever workarounds for everything, but it was always a pain to go back and figure out what the hell was happening, just because it would be like, all right, did I put my script on that thing or that thing? Because you would have so many of these little entities running mini scripts everywhere. And it seems to me that it's a lot easier to keep, like for at least the way I work, I tend to put almost everything on a master script and then just link to the items I want to do things, as opposed to putting a bunch of scripts on small items.
Yeah, I typically have, like in that one mod, Radical, that was a sort of new kind of game mode kind of thing to do in the game, lore-friendly way. But there's a lot of scripting in that where I used like a main game controller quest, and then there was a MISC controller quest for miscellaneous things within the bigger thing. That was a fun mod actually to make, because I've never really been that big on scripting. Typically, if I needed anything, I would ask Dante, like, hey, help, how do I do this?
and in turn you do all of his LOD work.
He would never just give me a script. He would be like pointing me in the right direction, and that was extremely helpful. Now I'm pretty decent at scripting, and this was only like 4 months ago probably, where I was just only able to do basically just the quest scripting, not object references scripts and magic effects scripts, activators. But it's a lot more interesting what you can really do once you realize the potential of scripting, even without the script extender.
Right. I agree. There's so much you can do with the scripting in this game. And that's one of the things where I'm continually blown away by the amount of freedom that Bethesda gives us in there, and why I'm kind of obsessed with their games, is because you can do pretty much anything. There's only like 2 or 3 things I've found that I wanted to do where I was just cut off due to just you just can't do it without the script extender. Yeah, and I don't mind, like, and it's a small enough number of things where I'm just like, okay, well, those are my bounds then, and that helps me work creatively better if I have certain boundaries. If I can just do everything, then it's really hard to focus. It's hard to like pick something to focus on, because you're just like, oh, but then I could do that, and then I could do that, and then I could do that. So having certain things I run into walls is good in my opinion.
Yeah, I have that a lot, where I'm working on something and I just have an idea, and then suddenly that branches off into this, and this and that happened. And that's how Xander's Aid was. I originally just made a little dungeon quest for the Firelance, and then it turned into a world space. And then it just, snowballed from there. And that's kind of what's happened with the Kelly story. At first, there was no world space or snow planned at all. And then it just kind of just appeared. And then I was like, oh, this sounds like fun. I'm going to do it. And then
now I haven't had a chance to try them yet, but I really like the ideas behind that little, I think it was a trilogy of them, the settlements that have little quests behind them.
Yeah, the settlement stories. Settlement Story 1 was pretty standard. Get the kill the guy, get the settlement. Settlement Story 2 was just get the settlement, really. Settlement 3 had more in there, like more content, probably like 20, 30 minutes of a dungeon style quest, blah, blah, blah. Talk to the guy, and even had a really cool voice actor in there. And then Settlement Story 4, well, that just exploded into this huge thing.
Is that released? Are these all released?
The first 3 are. 4 is still in the works.
Because you're letting it creep.
Kelly's Story was a Halloween special that, again, it blew up into something way crazier, and then 76 came out and really stalled me there. So I think Kelly's Story is definitely a 2019 release, probably end of January, I'd say. I guess.
That depends on if you're inspired, though.
Yeah, that was supposed to be like the day before Halloween, for example. That was the plan, and then it didn't happen. And then there's, again, Settlement Story 4, which I was working on before this one, and now that's on hold until that. And then after that comes Liberty Hell.
So you've got three mods on deck, and then you're going to work on the super project.
Yes,
Liberty Hell is Pittsburgh, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, Philadelphia.
Yeah. Philadelphia, okay.
They have a lot of work done. It's pretty incredible how much they've done, even with its fairly small team. I'm hoping to get in there and do
Are they doing like
space,
a full? Are they doing a full quest and everything? I haven't heard much about that one. It's not like the one like Cascadia and Miami have been really pushing their marketing already, like for a long time. But Liberty Hell seems to be a little more.
Liberty Hell's not quite there yet.
Okay.
I even find Miami not be. Well, actually, I haven't kept up on Miami in a long time. When I first helped them out, they had not very much done at all. But from the trailers, it looks pretty like massively greater. But Liberty Hell, plenty of work still needs to be done on that, and they don't really want to hype everyone up and then have everyone forget about it.
Right. That's I always feel like a lot of these big mods get started way too early, but I think part of that is they're just trying to it's for recruitment purposes. Because it's hard to get people to work on these big projects, especially because like I think most people, and from my experience so far, and I've been modding since I was a teenager, and it's hard to get people motivated to a single person's vision, and it's rare is the person who understands what it means to commit to a project for years. Like that, a lot of people they don't recognize that they operate on their own hype, and like you can't just operate on that in order to make big projects like that happen. Like it requires discipline. You've got to be willing to commit and be like, all right, I'm going to put in this much time in this. I know there are going to be some times where I'm not going to be super motivated, but I'm going to do it anyway. And like that takes a certain type to pull that off. So you kind of have to, with those big mods, I think they have to advertise enough and get enough people to pay attention so that you can pull out a few of those people that are willing to commit long term so that you can actually have a chance to get it done.
Yeah, that's how I am with the Ops Salvo. That mod I'm entirely doing by myself, not relying on anyone because I just don't want to deal with that people coming and going or losing interest and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I just want to do it myself, so it's entirely my vision. No matter how long it takes, it'll be done eventually. And then, with Liberty Hell, that's done by a small team as well. They're all very committed. And I am eager to join that one, as more of a full-time thing, but probably on the quest side of things rather than, world space, cell creation. I don't really like to touch people's world space. That's their, their baby. I don't want anyone to touch my stuff either. But,
I get you. Yeah, I kind of feel that way with when people have asked me to help with things. I'm like happy to write people's scripts because I feel like you tell me what you want us to do, I'll make it do it. I'm not investing any of my creativity into it. I'm just doing you a favor, like just helping out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, with Liberty Hell, I hope to really. I'd like to be. I haven't talked yet to the main guy about what I will be doing, but my hope right now is to be, one of the lead quest creators, I guess.
Creator or implementer?
Implementer.
Like, do you want to be the writer? Like, do you want to be the writer?
Well.
Okay. That's what I'm wondering if you're looking to write
implementer, and I'd like to write some quests. I feel like I come with some interesting stuff.
I was going to say that you are really. I think you. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm betting you are incredibly good at implementing those, because I saw one of your videos recently where you took the time to script out your character being the narrator, and
yeah.
like that means you actually set up all the markers and the quest and everything. So do you have a really fast workflow to do that, or are you just willing to put in a dozen hours making a video?
That kind of video, I mean, I'm very fast at it. It probably takes me an hour to make it, and then an hour to voice and record the actual video of it.
Oh my God, can you teach me? Can you teach me to work that quickly?
I've just been doing it for forever, especially with Opsalvo, because that started out, again, not as a world space mod. It eventually became that. And at first, you can play the first probably hour of Opsalvo right now.
Okay.
It has all the scripting done, a ton of stuff up until the first or the second act. And then that's when I incorporated a world space. And now that's on halt, and now it's world space creation time.
Right. Well, and you have your other two mods to do too. Now, do you have a lot of voice actors working on those too, or do the stories written in such a way that you don't need a lot of character?
I have a pretty good access to voice actors. I haven't had anybody really do a lot of voice acting on these mods yet until I basically finish writing out the quest. If they just have a small part, like a reoccurring character, which there is in a Kelly story, then I will have them just voice it out real quick so that I can check it out in game. Because that's my favorite part, when they voice it and then I get to go in game and see them bring it to life. Because when it's just them walking from place to place, looking at you, dialogue on the screen.
It's also really it's really frustrating with how long it takes for the dialogue to flow through.
Oh yeah, if there's no audio file associated with the mod, then it could either take a few seconds for a few words, or it can take like 30 seconds for 2 sentences.
Right.
For
yeah.
each
I guess
dialogue topic.
I've been wanting to write, and I'm probably gonna. So I have a bunch of quest stuff to do. And that's why I said, can you teach me to go faster? But one of the things I'm probably going to write for it is a script to generate silent audio files for all of the voice file names, just so that I don't have to wait for all that time for the text to proceed, because that seems to take forever. Or I'm surprised they don't have it built in for you to be able to just click past it. Like, that's so weird. That without the audio file, you can't skip past the subtitles. Very strange decision by Bethesda.
Yeah, I don't really understand that. I think right now the best thing to do is just have a single audio file, that's just blank, and then specify that in the audio override file name. Just be 00. Put that in every dialogue topic, and then that would, play that silent 2-second long clip for every dialogue topic. But I never really do that.
Well, yeah, but then you'd have to remember to go back and remove that.
Yeah,
which would
exactly.
be a pain. Yeah, that's why I was thinking I could just, because you can export. Oh God, we're probably boring the hell out of people listening to this. You can export out a list of the file names and then just write a batch file to look at that CSV file and create a copy of the silence. That's what I'm thinking I'm going to do, just as a way to, because that drives me nuts with it. Slows things down. Like, those little things add up. Like, when you're developing something big and you're trying to keep yourself motivated, getting slogged down by, that little thing, it's like, oh, that only takes a second. That's not a big deal. It is a really big deal when you have to do it over and over and over and over again. Then those seconds really matter, just to keep
especially for testing. And you're just like, come on, all right, I'm gonna quick save here so I don't encounter that again before the next scene starts. You don't want to save during a the scene you're testing.
Right.
But, yeah, it'll be fun to make a tutorial video on that video you referenced specifically earlier. I've had people ask me, make a tutorial video of how you did the voicing with your own character walking as a host through the mod or whatever you're doing. So
right.
I've been thinking about making
now, did you do that with did you like sequence that all out in the CK, or were you just driving that while you were recording? Like, did you do that machinima style, or did you do it with a mod?
Yeah, it's a technically complete mod. It's an ESP, created in the creation kit. Everything
the character does those things, does those
out.
sequences. Okay. Then yeah, I would love to see that tutorial, because you must have if you can do that in an hour, you must have a great workflow for it, and a lot of people would benefit from that, because there are a lot of quest mods for Bethesda games that end up getting stuck in development hell, because there's just so much work that goes into doing that for most people. And I think this is why Bethesda will continue to say things like, we like our engine, because they're clearly there's a fast
so
workflow.
Good with it, yeah.
Yeah, right. And there's obviously, it's possible to create quick workflows. And I personally am not at it at all. It takes me a long time to implement particular quest stuff. Like a short quest usually takes me like 3 days to implement of all my time. And so, when we're trying to do dozens, it's like, okay, this is going to be a big time commitment.
Yeah, as you do them, you get used to it. You come up with the quest idea, and then you're like, all right, so I need this at this point, that point, Like
right.
A standard fetch quest. I need the start. I need the stage to where they get the quest. They go off. They do their thing. They get the item. They got to come back, check everything for the scenes. It's
right.
You get really used to coming up with the process before you even start making it.
It sounds like a lot of the way I've improved with programming over my life. Of like, I start out, it was always just like every new project was a struggle. Now I get an idea and I can break it down into its components and bust it out real fast.
Plan,
yeah, right.
Instead of making it up as you go.
Yeah, which just feels like even when you get good with modding this engine, that still ends up being the thing you end up having to resort to a lot. Of like, all right, well, that didn't work, so I guess we're just gonna kind of improvise here and make stuff up.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of improvising and coming up with
like hiding occlusion
things.
Walls in between your buildings.
Yeah. So that snow doesn't go through the roof and the floor and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. So you said that the fourth settlement. Obviously, I'm a settlement junkie. So your fourth settlement mod intrigues me in that you said it's going to have a little more quest action to it. Is that? Do you mean that in the sense of kind of like what you've done with your other stuff, where it's going to blow up and you're going to all of a sudden have a world space, or are you just talking about there's just a little more involved than like a kill quest?
Settlement Story 4. If you played Xander's Aid, there's a quest in there for about Section 9. It's called the Synthetic Section.
Okay.
You learn about Section 9, and then there are kind of like tidbits of Section 9 peppered into my mods, and then even in Settlement Story 3, you encounter them more and more as you play these mods. Basically, the idea is that Siri thought I said her name. Okay.
My phone does that. My phone does it all the time, and I have no idea how to activate it. It's like whatever the Samsung one is called, and that's like I don't even know what your name is, but I definitely didn't say it.
Or something.
I think it's something like that, but that doesn't work, so I don't know what it is. It just goes off randomly.
Well, you have to be like, "Hey, Big Z," or I have no idea what the Samsung. I'm constantly talking, and then my phone would be like, "Hey, what's up?" But anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so the idea is that with Section 9, you're making yourself known to them more, so then they appear more because they don't like you, and and then in the Settlement Story 4, that's when you actually finally meet them, and there is a lot more question involved in that than I think anything I've done so far. There's actually like choice and some factions. That one's more involved than my typical mods that I put out.
Well, that sounds awesome. I love, because I felt like you get some of the settlements too easily in the base game. So like anytime there was an actual quest involved or like something you had to do to get it, always felt way better. And it was so rare that it seemed like wasted opportunity in there. So it's cool to hear that you're doing something like that, where the mod is a settlement mod, but you've got to go through a quest to earn it. Like that seems like a better. It seems like a really amazing a reward, but when throughout the game you're just handed the keys, like you just walk up to Red Rocket and you have yourself a settlement, that just seems now all of a sudden you just devalued the workshop at the settlements as a reward throughout the rest of the game, which I always thought was kind of a bummer.
I don't like that settlement.
You just walk up and you've got it. Yeah.
That's in the settlement story 1 and 2. That's kind of how it is. You're kind of handed the keys, or you kill someone, then you get the quest.
Right, which is how it worked for most of the base game ones. It was you walk in, you clear out some ghouls, boom, you've got yourself a city. Yeah,
and then in Settlement Story 3, there is in the quest, there's this device that is causing the workbench at the Atom Cats settlement to be inoperable. And basically you go through the quest and you get rid of that problem. And then you have access to the workbench.
Sure.
I thought that was a pretty decent way.
Yeah,
and then in Settlement Story
that's
4,
definitely way more interesting than. And I assume that did you tie it into the existing Atom Cat stuff? So like, do you have to have some sort of? Do you have to have completed the Atom Cat's quest as well?
No, I didn't want to touch that at all. I didn't want to, potentially break anything with other mods. I kind of kept them. If you're friends with the Atom Cats, that's great. Otherwise, obviously that settlement's probably not going to work for you unless you kill them, if you can.
That's one of the things I started doing with the Sim Settlement stuff, because there were so many times where we were causing city or quests to break. Is I've now I have the cities test for certain quests in the base game to make sure they're done. That way, there's no interference then. Because, like, for example, if somebody were to take over the Atom Cats area before they did the quest and then they built up a bunch of stuff, they could probably break the quest.
Well, I kept it
depending on how they built
from that. But there is if they built a bunch of stuff on top of like where the gunners appear during that quest, that could probably be a problem. But that's the sort of thing where like players were breaking the game for themselves, and I was just like, all right, enough. We're just gonna lock it out so that you have to complete the quest first. Yeah, I warned people in Settlement Story 3, probably don't want to install this until after you've probably done this quest. But if you don't care about the quest, then whatever. You'll just have the Atom Cats helping defend your settlement, because they want to defend their home, and you're building at their home. But I didn't want to mess with their actor forms and give them the workshop NPC script and be able to command them.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been trying to figure out, and I feel like I'm on the verge of getting it, is a way to make the workshop's NPC script work as an alias, to where you could just dynamically turn people into NPCs or workshop NPCs. That's something I'm trying to figure out how to do.
I feel like that wouldn't be too hard. It would be
so far when I just do it like I just said, like just add it to an alias, doesn't work. So I think it's just the way the workshop NPC script was written. So I gotta keep digging at it and try and find a way. There's gonna be a way, I'm sure. It's just gonna take me a while to fight my way through it, because I think that could be really powerful, and it would be one of those things I'd probably release as a public resource, to just be able to dynamically turn anybody into a settler. It could be really cool.
That would be pretty good. Put that as the like a little add-on for workshop framework.
Yeah, that would be a good thing for workshop framework. Yeah, I'm trying to get more and more people using that.
I really like that mod. I do have it on my Fallout 4 playthrough, because it is.
All right.
I don't really use any of the really awesome features. I just really like the efficiency of it. It's much nicer now than how it was before.
Speaking of efficiency, that thing Reg2K put out, that lag fix. Oh my god, that was such a miracle little mod. He did it in like an hour. Like, I messaged him about the problem. I was like, hey, you think you could fix this? Kind of jokingly, and then like I swear an hour later he sent me a DLL file. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you could have done this that whole time, and you left us all to suffer for 2 years. There are a few people who mod these games who just like blow my mind at how good they are. Like how much they just understand the engine and can just rip stuff off. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and all they really need is the idea to, work towards. And they're like,
Right.
oh, this is a great idea. Let me do that real quick. It's kind of what ASE was, It just made
yeah.
I used them as individual settlements at first, and then people were like, just do it all in one. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, fine. And then I did that in like an hour and a half. And then that became my biggest mod ever. I'm like, really? It took me an hour and a half to make that. I'm spending months at a time on these world spaces.
Well, there's actually something I've considered doing, and it might be something I do when I'm ready to like if I get some settlements in a place where I'm ready to take a little break from it or something, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. But I've always thought there's a place for somebody to go through all of the older mods and look at how they did things and then recreate them, because I think there are a lot of mods that get put out that get really popular that actually weren't done in a very efficient way, or were done in a way that have a lot of silly bugs. And like All Settlements Extended filled one of those niches. There were a couple other mods that did that, but they had quirks with them. There were things that just didn't work right, and so you did it the correct way.
That didn't have any like border walls. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
So I used existing border walls. It wasn't until ASE 2.0 where I made the custom border walls to actually fit the surface. And I think after I did that, I was like, it's finally done. This mod is
it's perfect.
It's perfect. Besides the occasional person having a mod conflict issue or something's not working right.
Yeah, well, you're touching a lot of cells, so that's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
But there's nothing they can do about that. I mean, Bethesda's given us the best. We've got a lot of tools to deal with it, and unfortunately, when it comes into, and that's probably why I like interiors more than you do. Is I am a bit of a OCD with edits to vanilla records. I try and never ever do it. Like I think
that's how it is. Yeah.
There's a few edits that I've done of like I'll add things to a cell, and there's probably a few edits I've done to like the persistence records, but I don't really count those because they don't require compatibility patches. But I hate having to deal with compatibility issues. Just hate it, and it feels like dirty edits feel very dirty to me. I can't do it, and it definitely like I figured out for we keep talking about Workshop Framework. For Workshop Framework, when I released it, it had some dirty edits, and I'm like, I'm sorry guys, this is my first mod that has edits. I had no choice, and then after a couple weeks of thinking about it, I figured out a way to get rid of them all. So now it just edits a couple of scripts, but no edits to the ESP, and I was so happy about that.
Yeah, that's how Sidante is. He's working on this one quest mod. He put a little demo on his YouTube channel. Basically, like, there's new things, ways of like storytelling in the Commonwealth world space in the cells, and he did everything entirely from a script. It places everything out and then does it without editing any records at all, and it's insane.
That's probably why my quests take so long. That's how I've done them all too, is I dynamically do everything. And it makes it harder also. It also makes it harder because I have to make them work on a plot, so it's like the origin can even be anywhere. So that's probably slowing me down quite a bit.
And I'm like,
whereas if I just
not interested, I'm like, I'll edit some cells, but they're very remote cells that no one else is really going to be editing. There's thousands, plenty of room.
Right. Well, and you're creating when you create your world space, you get to just go nuts. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Like I'll edit one cell in like the Commonwealth. That's kind of like the transition cell to some interior, then blah blah blah.
Yeah. Eventually, you exit out the other side, and you're in your magical world.
Everything's doable. Yeah.
Right. That's I get why they end up doing. So one thing I've always missed in games, I felt like the old school games where you would have like big expansion packs come out, they were more likely to continue off on the existing story. And now the trend has been over the last, decade, that anytime you get new DLC or new stuff, that it almost always goes to a new world space. And I think part of that is they're just like, they don't want to have to go through the QA again of the original game to like make sure they didn't break anything if they were doing all sorts of edits to it. Like the fact that that Fallout 3 had that continued ending for one of its DLC was shocking, because it was nobody does this anymore.
Broken Steel, yeah.
Right. Loved that one. Loved the fact that they.
I love Fallout 3.
It was a great game. Yeah, I mean, like I was actually when Fallout 3 came out, I was one of those dickheads who was like, no, it's got to be isometric, and I didn't play it for years. Yeah, because I was like Fallout 2 was my jam. That game was so amazing, and then to see them switch it to 3D, and I was like, ugh, like that's terrible. And I avoided it for years, and then when I finally picked it up, I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. This is just what the series needed.
Yep. Fallout 3 was my first Fallout. Never really got into the old style isometric games. I played some.
I've tried to go back and play Fallout 1 and 2 again, and I don't have the patience for turn-based games anymore. And
that's another thing.
And reading through all of that stuff is pretty painful now. Like I'm very pro voiced protagonist, although Gopher did give me a very strong argument for why taking away the voice protagonist can be powerful, and I kind of agree with him on that. Of like, if you're trying to make a replayable game like that, taking away the voice protagonist makes a game way more replayable. Just because you're not. It's much easier to go down different paths. Like if you're not hearing your character say the same things over and over again, and it's easier to kind of get into that headspace of this is just a world you're exploring, and your character can be whatever you want it to be. So it's easier to convert into like a stealth character versus a brutish character if you don't have the voice reminding you that you just played it all. So I can get that, but I like the voice protagonist because when I'm gaming, I'm trying to relax, and so like having to read through a lot of stuff isn't relaxing to me.
Yeah, I love the voice protagonist. I love Courtney Taylor, and Brian T. Delaney's pretty cool too. But I love Courtney Taylor; she's great.
She's got. I think she did way better than he did. Like I think his guy really comes off as nice guy no matter what.
Yeah.
Whereas Courtney, I think you can, like, depending on the lines you choose, you can kind of hear. She can kind of go from nice to like almost Raider Woman, like in a single set of lines. So she seemed to have a better range for a character that's supposed to be kind of role play.
Yeah, that's why in all my mods, I always have voiced protagonist in there, and it is limiting in what I can do, but I still make it pretty fresh feeling, even though
there's fortunately a really good pool to choose from. Like there were, I think there's something like 14,000 player lines. Like there's a pretty acceptable pool of lines to pull from. We've been writing tons of quests with that.
Things
you can do what? You
can trim the files and get rid of.
How you
doing, Piper? And then you just get rid of Piper and you say, how you doing?
Right. We've been doing a lot of writing, and we did the same thing. We wanted to make sure we had the voice protagonist, but that was mostly just because I guess to make sure it's coherent across the playthrough, because it would be really jarring if you're just going along your game and then all of a sudden you just run into a quest where it doesn't have one. It's like, oh, well, I found the mod quest, and like that's gonna feel bad.
I make my mods how Bethesda would make mods.
Right.
This is like. That's how this one guy was commenting with Settlement Story 3. He was because the player is voiced, and then the actor of Sullivan is really good. I love that guy. His name is Alex Kane. He did an incredible job voicing him, and fooled people into thinking that it was a normal mod. Because some people just throw in all kinds of mods into their game and then start playing, and eventually get to the mods.
Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. I usually I have a collection because I tend to play through Bethesda games once every 2 years. So every 2 years I'll load up Skyrim and grab a bunch of mods, and usually I just grab a whole bunch of the popular ones without really paying attention to what I'm grabbing. Aside from mechanics mods, but quest mods, I'm like, I don't want to know how to start this. I just want to stumble upon it, and that's a lot of fun to me, is to do that. And I'm actually looking forward to doing that for Fallout. But there's not a ton of quest mods for Fallout 4.
I feel like it's because of the possibly the voice protagonist really limits things in some people's eyes, in creators' eyes.
It definitely requires a different skill set to write like that. Like we've been really fortunate that the writers who've come on the Sim Settlements team are willing to take on that challenge, because it looks really difficult. I'm not a writer, so I don't know, but I can tell, like, just about the work they go to try and get some of the more obscure lines to work so that they're not stepping on each other's toes. And it's like, that cannot be easy, and it's got to be a different way of telling stories. So I can see, somebody's got an idea for a very specific thing they want to do. It can be really hard to do that with a voice protagonist.
It is, you have your main idea for the quest, but when you're actually writing out the scenes, at least this is what I do. I write out the scenes in the creation kit and come up with them there, so then I could take a look at what lines are available. There's a really handy tool for seeing every line in Fallout 4 for the protagonist, or really any character, and just play them like right there and just hear how they say it. That's also extremely important, how they say this.
Yeah. Is that a tool? Is that tool? Because I wrote a custom tool to do that for the player. Is there one built into the creation kit, or did you find? Is there a community tool for that?
There is a community tool. It's like the
I'll have to bug you for that after this.
Yeah, I can send you a link.
Sweet.
It's like a voice
listening to the
tool.
listening to the files is super important.
It is.
I've learned that just doing
how you make a mod.
I've learned that doing, so I like to make game trailers, and I end up often put player lines from there, and so there's been a couple times where I've planned out a whole sequence and I'm like, oh, that didn't sound anything like I thought it was gonna. And it's like, nope, gotta rewrite that from scratch.
Yeah, and then it also gives you other ideas of what to do. You come across other lines that, like, I didn't think of that.
Can be creative inspiration
for that.
Yeah, that's really it. Definitely is a really interesting challenge. So I wonder how much that does have to do with the lack of quest mods. I also think there's another argument for why we have lack of them, because I don't think it's a lack of player interest. I think there's a very healthy mod community for Fallout 4, but there's we said earlier that it's much easier to mod Fallout 4 than it has been to mod past games, I think at the same time it's also more demanding. So like, to get something of high quality, and this is going to be the case, as games evolve, it's going to keep getting more and more demanding on people to create for them. Just because there's so many, they basically, by opening it up to be like, hey, now you can control the animations, and now you can control this, now you can control this. As more things become dynamic, they require more setup. So like, they're easier to edit later, but to set them up front becomes more challenging. And so I think that is a wall for a lot of people. So like, I tend to find we get a lot of new modders coming into the Sim Settlement server because they started off with like the Builder's Toolkit or something, and we just invite them on to learn. And I find a lot of them come on with like, here's my cool mod idea, and I'm like, all right, well, that's going to take you like 9 months of practicing all these different disciplines to get there, but we'll help you where we can.
Here, start with this tutorial, and then after you finish that one, see if you still want to do it.
Right. Because there's so many like cross disciplines required. Like, there's a shocking amount of stuff that's actually like actual gameplay mechanics that are controlled by animations. For example, like to reload a weapon, that's not just like a function, that's actually triggered by animations. So if you wanted to like force things to reload, you have to trigger an animation, and so then you have to go learn some animation stuff. And so like, there's a whole bunch of things like that in all game engines, but it's very intermixed in Fallout and Skyrim because of kind of the history of this engine of like them having to do. A lot of it comes from like the way they hack together things back in the day. So there was a lot more, like I was describing with Half-Life with those entities and stuff. There was a lot more of that going on a long time ago. You couldn't afford to have everything nicely compartmentalized in computers, and so then you had things like the NIF files, which are just contain they're starting to get more normal, and they're starting to contain the appropriate data, but they still have a lot buried in them of like triggers and sound files that play out of them and all this stuff that's like, that shouldn't be there, that should be somewhere else. And it's literally just a holdover from old school when games had to be hyper efficient, and so you would invent all these crazy workarounds to make sure that your game could pull off some cool stuff. And it's still necessary in a sense of, if you want to up your graphics, you then got to keep using tricks like that. But I still think for the most part, most modern games now, when they're written, is they don't try and do crazy hacks like that from the outset. It's more like, okay, the code is going to be, separated from the sound, which is going to be separated from the animations, and like everything is kind of neat little boxes, so you can kind of stay within your discipline. But when you're modding Fallout 4, I feel like I know a little bit about everything now. Like I know a little bit about sound design, know a little bit about working with the with animations and models and programming, and I think you're in the same boat of like, you're like, just doing quests requires you to kind of get involved in a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of all around. Definitely some more than others. Like, mesh creation. Don't know anything about that. I stay away from that.
Hey, you made the borders. You made the borders for the settlements.
Yeah, I edit existing NIFs. I took
I got the job done.
Normal border wall, a square one like Oberlin Station, and then modified it to work for my needs. But I've never made anything from scratch. I've only edited existing meshes.
Is that something you avoid intentionally?
Yeah, I don't want to spend the time learning all that.
Right.
I know plenty of people that I can, if necessary, have do it instead.
Yeah. That's it. Somebody said something to me about that I hadn't thought about before, because I used to be the type of person that if I needed something done, I didn't want to wait for other people, so I would just figure it out. And somebody made a good point to me that you only have time to master so many skills in your life, and so if you're burning time, getting yourself fairly proficient in all these different things that you don't have a good use for, that you're not going to go, try to get to mastery, you're burning time you could have got to mastery in your field that you are actually specialized in. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's a very good point. Is that like, I've probably spent, hundreds of hours learning enough to be, to get the basics done in 3D modeling. And it's like, if I had instead, devoted that time to getting better at my programming languages, that probably would have been a better use of time. But
so my kind of thing is, I don't want to learn mesh creation. Well, I mean, it's not like I don't want to. I just don't want to put in that time, because I can be doing all kinds of other things. So I'll have someone else make a gun, for example, while I do world space stuff or questing. So they're doing that. They can take their time, because my stuff takes forever as well. There's really no rush on it. And that's another thing. I don't like deadlines.
Really? Oh man, I thrive on deadlines. I thrive on them personally.
Get people in there.
I think I've started asking people now. Whenever I get somebody else involved, I ask them up front if they like deadlines or not, because some people like them, some people don't. I also find that there's another type of people who say they don't like them, but if they don't have them, they never do anything. So like the deadline then becomes like a requirement of like to actually, if you want them to actually finish something. So I tend to fall in that camp. I might say I don't like a deadline, but in reality, if I don't get one, I'll probably just procrastinate until you tell me I need it done by a deadline.
Don't mean to point fingers, but that's kind of how C. Dante is. You got to remind him every once in a while, like, "Hey,
give him a little poke.
Blah blah blah." He's like, "Oh, let me jump on that real quick."
That's probably because that man has 1,000 projects going at once. He's involved in all sorts of different mods. He's got a bunch of mod ideas himself. Every time I talk to him,
script extender mods, he has to update constantly.
Yeah. Oh man, talking about we keep talking back about Reg. He has automated the generation of his updates for when Bethesda puts them out. Yeah, just like, oh man, of course you would. Yeah. And that's I don't know if I could get involved with how many updates they're breaking F4SE with. I don't know if I'd get involved with an F4SE mod unless I could do that too, or set it up so that my mod doesn't care about the version, which I know it's risky, but
I don't touch a script extender at all, even for just a typical playthrough. I don't download any script extender mods.
There's certain ones I have to have. There's certain ones I really love, like that lag fix mod requires a script extender. Yeah. There's now the power grid tools to fix corrupted settlements, because that can happen easily. And then the MCM is such a dream compared to the holotape entries.
Well, I don't do any holotape mods. In all honesty, I don't download very many mods at all from the Nexus.
You have all your time
I
spent.
have a handful only. It's pretty
right. You're probably just testing all the time, right?
What was that?
you're spending more of your time in game testing than actually playing.
Oh yeah, I haven't actually really played in quite some time. I did in anticipation for Fallout 76. I was like, I'm gonna play some Fallout 3, and then I started playing Fallout 4. I'm like, this is awesome. I love these games.
It's kind of the modder's curse of like once you figure out how it works under the hood, it makes you want to. Then every time you start playing, you get inspired to go do something else, and it's like, all right, I gotta get back at the creation kit, or I gotta get back into Edit.
Big time with world creation. I'll play Fallout 4. I'm looking at how they did something like this piece of terrain with like a fake NIF terrain with a tree coming out of it with this rock around it. I'm like, all right, I gotta get in the creation kit now. Stop playing.
It's it's fun to do that. I do that with building designs for some settlements. I'll see something while I'm playing the game, and then I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna open the creation kit, and then I'm just gonna like grab that chunk of the world and I'll start toying with it. It's fun.
It really is. And then that you can get a lot of inspiration just from playing the game. And then, like you said, you know how how it all works. So when you're playing 76, you see something that's kind of off or funny looking, and then you're like, oh, I see exactly how they did that. And it's really clever. But I know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Which I feel can ruin a little bit of the game.
100%. That's definitely. It makes it.
Breaks immersion.
I think it breaks immersion, and then it's also like, oh, they didn't come up with a better way for that. Like if
why didn't you just do this instead?
Sure, yeah. I mean, part of that I think it comes from there's something I often don't really think about because I try to be humble with this and assume that all these people who are professionals and doing this for a living are all excellent at it. But in reality, the more I dive in, I'm like, oh, a lot of these guys are clear amateurs at this stuff. Like this script is terrible, or like you could definitely do this 5 other ways and it's way easier. But it's like they're gonna have different people coming in at different levels in the company, and they're broken up into teams in order to tackle especially a world the size of 76. They're gonna have little independent teams, and it might be like the guy who's in charge of scripting on team C is not their best scripter, but he's just the best guy on their little team who has to do it, and so he's just got to make do with what he knows. And then then you can see how all that stuff would start to happen. Like it's not sure everybody can be
in 76. I'm sure they got people in there that's probably new to the creation kit or
right
kit 76,
because they brought in all those different teams and stuff, like the Battle Cry and ID or id Software and stuff. So yeah, some of those people are probably like, I've never used this before.
And there might be some ways of doing things that they just didn't know was there that maybe one of us did.
Yeah. Have you ever played with any other game editor besides GAC or Creation Kit?
I did probably spend an hour worth of time in like Gary's mod.
Okay.
For example. But that's pretty much it. My life's been Creation Engine.
Yeah. I've been considering I've never played around with it. I played around with Unity some, but I've never played around with Unreal, and everybody always talks about like, everyone should switch over to Unreal. Yeah. And I think they just say that because it just, it looks really good, but I don't think they have played with the tools, because I've also heard from some developers that, it's not an easy editor. It's not like it can make some gorgeous visuals, but it is not it's not a picnic. Like it's not some automatic thing that everybody should convert over to. But I've been considering playing around with it to see what their workflow is like, because one of the things I hear Bethesda say often is they like their tools and they like their workflow because it works quickly. I'm actually a tool developer professionally. Like I develop tools for companies and stuff to do their work in applications, like web applications and stuff. And so like I know that any type of workflow, you can recreate that anywhere. So then I'm like, okay, well then couldn't we just take like all the linked ref system and the quest system and just build that into a better looking game engine? And so I've been trying to find somebody who knows Unreal enough to tell me if that's feasible, because like that could be a fun like tech demo. Fun for me as an engineer. Yeah. But like the idea of like, okay, what if we could, take the workflows that Bethesda wants and then just stick them into an engine that looks prettier and be like, here you go, guys, go do that.
Yeah. I feel like with the creation engine, when they say things like that, we're really quick and fast at it. I do feel like you could get them a new engine that feels the same and kind of works in the same way,
right?
And they could adapt. I'm not saying they need a new engine. Or how do you feel about the creation engine? Do you think they need a new engine at all? Or
I mean, it definitely has. It has a few like pretty deep limitations that I think, but I don't know how. Again, I don't know how much of this has to do with that, because like the 76 shows that they've got it modularized enough to where they can plug in new tech pretty easily. Like that whole lighting engine, like that uses some third-party system. They've obviously got Havoc merged in, and so like clearly it's good enough to where they can plug in different things. So I think the idea of an engine is more about, like I said, I think when they're talking about their engine, they're talking about the workflow. They're talking about the way, they have their quests as their controllers. They have, the way the linked refs work, the way aliases work. I think that's what they're talking about. And to me, that's just a set of tools. And so like, I think the fact that their graphics are always steps behind, I don't know how much of that is, I don't know like what's the contributing factor there. Is that because they can't afford all of the performance hits, like that they need more FPS to dedicate to like their scripting engine, or like too much processing power for that, or I don't understand enough about game engines to answer that question. But I don't think that their workflow is a problem. Like I think that the way they design their quests and stuff, I think is all fine. I don't think that that's a cause of it, but I do know of a few flaws in the engine. For example, its inability to render large numbers of textures in the same space, and like that is, whatever the core is of their rendering engine, that's a problem. Like, in their game just will crash under those circumstances. Like most game engines that I am familiar with tend to be, once they get bogged down with something, you just see severe FPS drops. But the creation engine just seems to deal with those by crashing. Yeah. Right, it just quits. And there's zero other games that I've gotten really into that I can think of in any recent time that I crash as frequently as I do in Bethesda games.
None really that I can think of. I think of like Tomb Raider. I forgot the name of their engine, but there's these. I think
they use Frostbite now, don't they?
Handle so much more textures. Yeah, Frostbite 2.0. That's another example. The Battlefield engine is incredible looking.
I see. I think the thing is that you now have all these games now. They're all doing like so Bethesda used to be unique in the sense that, their games were the only ones where you could do kind of anything. Your quests could be anything. There was no limitations there, and it was all open. But I think more and more games are getting that way, yet they're also like, essentially they've stayed ahead of the curve graphically, and now they're catching up with what you can do in them. The F to pay respects thing. Like there's nothing special about being able to interact with objects or have conversations. Like that is just becoming common. So given that, like all of that stuff, that tool type stuff of like how, you can make things dynamic, like talk to each other and have the ref collections and all these things we do in the creation kit that we take for that, maybe at a time they were unique to Bethesda games. They're not unique anymore. So like then to me, they're using these old graphics to cling to what is essentially a workflow, and a workflow. Definitely. As a tool designer, I know for a fact you can easily take any workflow and put it into any other system. So I'm just like, every time I hear that, I get like an eyebrow raises, because I'm like, really? Like any competent programmer should be able to take that. And like, maybe I'm talking out my ass there, and that's why I want to ask about if anybody who is more familiar with Unreal, for example, tell me if that's, maybe I'm totally off base. Maybe there are such strict limitations in the way you do certain things that's just not feasible. But
there are some games that have limitations. Like I don't know what engine Titanfall 2 uses. It's an EA game. It might use the Frostbite engine. I'm not sure.
It's actually still based on Source. It's based on the Half-Life engine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
which is based on Quake. So it's just like it's built on top of a really old Quake.
Yeah, because I played through it sort of recently, kind of late to the game on that one. And, found out it has actually a lot of Fallout 4 voice actors in it, which is pretty cool. But there are some points in the game where things happen and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's something I feel like, the creation engine can do this. Did they get this idea from, whatever, flipping things around, and just because like things like that when they're going through. There's this one point where you can flip time around you and whatever crazy weirdness, and enable markers just come to mind from the creation engine.
Sure.
Having enable parents and linked references and
right,
such tiny things that are just extremely powerful if used correctly.
Right. And that's the type of thing I feel like we've got to be at a point where that type of stuff is ubiquitous. Like every engine's got to have those things. So then literally you're just talking about a layer of tools of how you interact with those things, and that should be creatable anywhere. Because I think now, like, especially as games kind of all start to converge on the same general ideas across the board, like every game is, almost every game is open world now, and almost every game has voiced characters in it, and almost every game has some sort of combat mechanics of whether it be first person or third person, melee or shooting, like all of that stuff. You have the possibilities to do all of these different things, and I think even like when you talk about like stuff like that, like these crazy moments and stuff, the tools to do that are kind of something you would need no matter what kind of game you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to want to be able to, dynamically flip set pieces in real time. Like that's the type of thing you're going to want to be able to do in any game engine. So I would think that all of this stuff exists in all of them. It's literally just a matter of the interface that the creators have to use is what's important there. So maybe what I'm hearing here is that I need to get into game tool development. Well, convincing myself of.
Maybe. Well, like when I look at the Frostbite engine, there isn't very much in that. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I've never looked at or messed with the Frostbite engine, but in terms of like Battlefield or Battlefront, it's all shooting games, and you can activate some objects, and that's really all that's going on. There's nothing. They feel simpler.
Okay.
But there might be things in there that they could do, but they just don't, get to it because Battlefield 1, there's not that much craziness going on besides typical war, but there's not like anything that really stands out as being, wow, I didn't know they could do this with that engine or in this engine. Mm-hmm. You just compare it to other engines, and
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the side of like I don't feel right commenting too much on it, just because I feel like I would need to go experience a lot of these other engines. Right. Engines. So yeah, like that. So when that argument comes up, I'm always like, I'm like, yes, there's some crashing issues that I think that they need to deal with in their engine, but I don't think that overall that's, I don't think they need to get to a new engine. I think it's
to bring it back to the original question, I don't think they need a new engine. They just need to work on it. Maybe a facelift, but
right. It should be brought up to modern standards graphically, and because I think it can now. I think we've gotten past the point of you need to sacrifice graphics in order to have functionality, because so like you were talking about that there's things that are relatively simple in the multiplayer games, but there are plenty of games now that do like scripted storytelling, like Tomb Raider and
exactly.
Like Last of Us, and like there's so many of these games that deal these crazy big stories in a single player campaign, and they don't just force you to do and you can do interesting things in them. Like there will be sequences in them that are unique for that particular moment in gameplay. So clearly they have the tools to do that, and they look graphically unbelievable. So I don't think that there's an excuse not to have a pretty decent looking game anymore, and still have a lot of that flexibility. So I would say they definitely need a facelift on it. And like there are some core, whatever's causing the crashing, whatever, I don't know what it is. I'm not an engine guy, but it's got to be fixable, because there's so many games out there now that you don't crash all the time with. So, but the other thing we're not considering here is that there really isn't any other game out there that's as openly moddable as Bethesda's games, as like Fallout 4 and Skyrim.
True.
Like the Half-Life games were pretty dang open. But they're not really, they're not really being supported anymore in that regard. I mean, the Source engine is, but you're not really seeing any more. Valve's not interested in putting out more Half-Life content, clearly, and so like Bethesda's like the last source of regular modding, because modding was a really big deal a long time ago, like back in the Quake and Doom days, and it just has become more of a niche over time, which is kind of
that's because there's no more Source games. come out anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's Valve's now anyway. Milking that Steam money machine. They don't need to be making as much money on game dev anymore. But yeah, so I'm on the side of they can probably just fix their existing engine. I don't think that's a problem. Mm-hmm. They probably just aren't investing the resources into it for whatever reason. I don't know how. That's the other thing. I don't know enough about the game dev business. I do know that when I see the price tags of assets, it like blows my mind.
Oh, yeah.
How do any of these games exist with those kind of prices? And it's no one. Then you start to understand like why there's all these crunch sessions and why it's. You hear about these AAA devs being what seems like criminally underpaid. It's like, wow, they can do that and they only make that much. It's like, I feel so bad for you guys. Mm-hmm. And it's like the cost of game dev is already that high, and it's a really cool job, so they kind of can get away with it. Is that a lot of people want to do it?
They want to do it anyway.
Right. And it's like, well, the cost is so damn high already. We couldn't afford to pay more anyway. I mean, yes, they can. And then I'm not going to say that they don't make healthy profits. Obviously, like you look at some of the profit numbers from EA and stuff, and it's unbelievable.
Rockstar, big time.
Right, but like the amount of money that they're also pouring in to get these it's pretty big, pretty big
and
gambles.
The marketing
like
on top of it, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, just crazy dollar numbers. But yeah, at the end of the engine conversation, I was curious if you'd played around with any others, because I'm on the verge of like starting to poke my head into them, just so I can talk more authoritatively. Is that a word? It sounded weird. Anyway, if I could talk with more confidence about them, because there's a lot of conversation coming up about knocking on Bethesda lately, and obviously I'm a big fanboy, so if I can defend them honestly, I would prefer to do that.
Yeah, it's been increasingly difficult to defend Bethesda.
I definitely can't defend 76. Like I'm clinging on to it because I like the idea of seeing what a multiplayer Fallout can look like. I don't think what 76 is now is a good incarnation of it, but I think that there's probably something there. There's probably a format where it works well, and I'm really curious to see that, because the Fallout franchise is amazing to me. I love the setting. I like I like the 50s retro thing. I like their humor. Like, I love Fallout as a franchise, so anywhere I can see it thrive, I want to.
That's how I am. Like, I have a friend that wants me to get into the Unity engine because he knows the Unity engine pretty well, and I know nothing about it, but I have no desire to do anything other than Fallout content, because like you said, it's the theme, it's the retro 50s, and then Wasteland. It's just honestly beautiful to me to look at, even though the graphics aren't that great. It's the destruction, it's the atmosphere behind it that's what I love about world space design. I'm not making like Skyrim, where it's prettier in a lot of senses. I like the destruction, the decay, and the tragedy that can be told just from environmental storytelling.
Sure.
There's a lot of that in a Kelly story mod I'm working on.
Well, I'm excited to see those come out, and it sounds like you've got plans to release those. So your mods are probably coming out early next year, at least. Maybe not Op Salvo, but the other two.
Definitely a Kelly story. That one's a sort of smallish world space, probably Xander's Aid size. I consider that pretty small. And it should be done fairly quickly, because I'm a lot faster at it. It's just a matter of free time. But
well, it sounds like if you're starting to wane on your login time to 76, then you'll probably start having a lot more free time here.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty bored of 76. I mean, unless I'm playing with a friend, then it's fun. But
a
game shouldn't rely on something like that, even though it is multiplayer.
Yeah,
I'd still like to be able to play it alone and still have fun, but it just doesn't have that for me anymore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that sounds like it's good for the rest of us, because I'm looking forward to seeing some more of your quest mods come out, and like especially to see your big snowy landscape when you finally get. Is that in Op Salvo or in Kelly Story?
That's a Kelly Story, and I've been having so much fun with it because it's just so different.
Yeah.
I'm also going to have a snowy area in Opsalvo now.
Awesome.
So snow is just a lot of fun to work with.
It definitely has got to be a huge change of pace. That's like I've been against the weather or the retexture mods that make it look like spring or summer, or like redo bring back all the greenery in Fallout. But
I hate that.
I've hated them, but I can see like when I watch people play the total overhaul like that, it makes it look like a totally different game. And I'm like, okay, I can see the draw there just to have something, just to get a taste of something different for a while. To just be like, all right, I'm sick of looking at all the drab grays and browns. Give me some green.
Yeah. And then like in the snow mod, I'm still keeping it very Fallout looking, but with like a coat of snow on it, and it's still gray and just, kind of depressing to look at. Classic Fallout.
The classic Fallout
atmosphere.
But it works good. And I think then all of the color on the characters and like the weapons and the advertisements and stuff, then all that stuff pops because the buildings themselves are all kind of faded into the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got the snow, and it does cover up a lot of the LOD issues with Fallout 4 with the pop-in and the pretty low quality looking stuff. And I feel like that's what the depth of field problem with 76 is. They're just trying to hide what's really there.
Hide all the popping going on. Yeah, the game has pretty excessive popping.
But at least with this update, they've added a depth of field slider, apparently.
Yeah, I haven't played around with that. I think I'm so used to, like, I just accept graphical problems anymore. Which is probably not a good thing.
Some people.
There's definitely, like, I get a lot of people. So I've been doing a Let's Play of 76, and there are a lot of angry people commenting that, like, you shouldn't let them off the hook, and they're probably right. But like, I'm just not paying attention to that side of things. It's like I've chosen to ignore that because I want to focus on this other side of it. But
I don't notice a lot. I don't like pop-in. I don't notice that. That's pretty normal to me. But you see like that weird shading line that just abruptly stops. That's something I still notice even after like 100 hours in this game.
I notice it a lot when you loot something and like the shadow disappears a little too slowly.
Yeah.
Like you pick up a bottle in the world, and then like a quarter of a second later, the shadow disappears. It's still better than it was at launch, where the shadow didn't disappear.
Oh yeah,
that was ridiculous.
Until you looked away. Pretty much.
Oops.
It's one of those things. Is that a bug or a feature? I'm not really sure.
I think a lot of that comes down to, so a lot of times in software development, you like have to make sacrifices where you're like, okay, I could fix that problem, but it might take like 40 more hours of development, or I could go work on this thing that's more front and center. And I think that's what we see a lot of in 76 of like, okay, we're on a race for this deadline. Let's just, let's get it. Like, I could spend a lot of time trying to fix that, but instead I'm going to go just do this, because there's no way they didn't notice those things. But I don't want to go back into knocking on the game. I think people can find 1,000 videos to listen to people bitch about Fallout 76.
I love those videos. I don't know why. When I'm modding, I've listened to hours and hours and hours of various YouTubers just talking smack about 76. It's just entertaining. I'm like, maybe there's something to learn from this. Maybe I should listen to what these people are saying and try to avoid that in my mods in some way. I don't know.
That's a good way to look at it. I remember, so I'm like most people now, I'm addicted to the Marvel movies, and I remember hearing an interview with the Russo brothers, and they said when they were writing Winter Soldier, which I think is their best one to date, like that movie was so damn good in my opinion.
Is that the first Captain America movie?
That was the second Captain America movie.
Second, okay, I gotcha.
That's the one where it turns out like that you find out that SHIELD is actually infiltrated by Hydra.
Yes,
and, like, everything kind of flips over.
I remember now. Bucky comes back. Okay.
And Bucky comes back, yeah. And the Russo brothers said that the whole time they were making that movie, they were thinking about this particular website, and I can't remember what it was, and how they're like, we don't want them to find anything to nitpick about this movie. So they were thinking about all the things that normally get critiqued in other people's movies, and we're like, all right, we can't fall into that trope. We can't fall into that. Like, we've got to make sure we pass this test. And so maybe that's a good way to go, of like looking at, maybe the they had the right idea there, because I think they really crushed it with that one, and they've been crushing it with all the other ones they've been directing too. That it might be a good idea to figure out which of the critics actually know what they're talking about and pay attention.
Yeah, they are really good movies. I love them all.
So, well, I'm excited to see what you got coming out. Sounds like you got some really cool stuff coming soon, and you are getting really damn good at your mod stuff. Like All Silence Extended feels like it just feels so natural. It's great.
Thank you.
I'll definitely be, next time I have a playthrough and I want to add some more settlements, I'm definitely going to grab your settlement stories, because that seems right up my alley right there. And yeah, well, it's been awesome talking with you. Do you have anything else you wanna pitch or talk about before we sign off?
Let's see. I guess not really. Just stay tuned for whatever you've got going on, and keep an eye on the Nexus for whatever I've got going on.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, we'll link your stuff, your YouTube channel, and your Nexus page in the description so people can check it out if they haven't already. Awesome. Which I think everybody knows about All Settlements Extended. Like you said, that's your big one. But you guys should check out his other stuff. He's got other cool mods too.
Yep. And I'm always posting stuff on my channel of either some teaser, because I feel like posting that, or some random garbage that no one cares about. It's just a channel where it's kind of just a trash bin of random stuff.
Well, I'm especially
Fallout.
Yeah, there's been quite a few 76 little clips where you get angry, which were pretty entertaining. But I'm especially looking forward to the tutorial on how you pull off that your patch vid so quickly, because that was impressive.
I will definitely have to make one.
Fantastic. All right, man. Nice talking with you.
Likewise.